Good afternoon. Megilat Ruth, Part 2. Beshem Hashem Naaseh V'Natzliach. This show is dedicated to the safety and safe return of our hostages, our chayalim, and displaced families to go home soon. It is also dedicated for refuah shlema to all the sick ones of Am Yisrael, among them Zechariah Dov ben Pearl Shira, Avraham ben Chana, Ora bat Dalia. Le'ilui Nishmat, all those were murdered prior to October 7, on October 7, and since. And also Le'ilui Nishmat Goli bat Yafa, and Solika Tzadeket, whose Yotzat is today. Solika bat Simcha. And to the success of our children and grandchildren B'derech HaTorah, and to all our singles to find soon their partner in life. שיזכו לבנות בית נאמן בישראל בקדושה ובטהרה. Thank you to all my listeners for tuning in. May Hashem bless you in all that you do. And thank you, Hashem, for all your chasadim that you do for us every day. So, in today's lesson, we are going to learn from Perek Bet, Pesukim Aleph to Tet. So, the Pesukim tell us, okay, Naomi Moda Leisha, Ish Gibor Chayil. And Naomi had a relative through her husband. He was really her husband's relative. Mimishpechat Elimelech, he was her husband's Elimelech relative. Ushmo Boaz, and his name was Boaz. Now this is an introduction to Boaz. Vatomer Ruth HaMoaviyah, and we're going to see soon why this introduction was necessary. Vatomer Ruth HaMoaviyah and Naomi. And so Ruth the Moaviyah said to Naomi, her mother-in-law, El Chana Hasadeh, let me go to the field. They were hungry, they were tired, there was no food, right? They went back to Naomi's old house, and Ruth said, let me go to the field, let me gather some wheat for us to make flour and make some food, right? Achar asher emsa chen be'enav. I'll go to wherever I'll find favor, in whoever eyes I'll find favor. It means whoever's going to allow me to stay there in his field. Vatomar la, lechi beti. And so Naomi said, go. All right. So obviously here Ruth was a little anxious because she knew that the people knew that she was from Moab, and they were not going to be exactly very nice to her, as she's a daughter of an enemy. And Naomi says to her, okay, you want to go, but first I have to teach you the halachot, teach you the laws. And so she taught the halachot of leket, which is picking wheat branches. So the halacha is whenever there is wheat that fell off the hands of the workers, of the harvesters, there's, let's say, two or three branches, the poor is allowed to come and take. Okay? That is called leket. It's a mitzvah from the Torah. And so Naomi taught her, and Ruth left. Vatelech vatavo, so she went, and she came. Pasuk says vatelech vatavo, it seems like she did this a few times back and forth. It seems that she was trying to find like a landmark or something for her to know how to get back home to Naomi. Vatelaket basadeh, and so she gathered some wheat. Achar hakotzrim, she had gone. She had followed the workers. Vayiker mikreha, and it happened to be chelkat hasadeh leBoaz, that she went into the first field that she saw, and that was the field of Boaz. Asher mimishpachat Elimelech, from the family of Elimelech. Now we'll talk some more about this, about that it seemed to be like a coincidence, as we know there's no such a thing, right? V'hinei Boaz ba mi Bethlehem, and Boaz came from the city, from Bethlehem. Vayomer lakotzrim, and he said to the kotzrim, Hashem imachem. Hashem is with you. It was his way of greeting the workers. Actually, we learned that it's the first time that this expression had been used. Vayomulo yevarechecha Hashem. And so they answered, Hashem should bless you, that everything is good. Hashem should bless you too. Vayomer Boaz lena'aro anitzav ala kosrim. So then Boaz turns to his manager, and he says, Lemi ha'na'ara azot? Who is this woman? Vayana na'ar hanitzav ala kotzrim. And so the manager said, Na'ara Moaviyah. She's from Moav. He hashava im Naomi. She came back with Naomi, Misde Moav, from Moav. Vatomer ala ketana va'asafte ba'amarim. And she actually even asked permission to take from the leket, from the wheat branches. Achare kotzrim, what I'll take ba'omarim, and I will take from the leket, from the bundles that the workers are going to make. Vatavo vata'amod me'az haboker vad ata. And she has been here since the morning, and she hasn't stopped working. Ze shifta habayit me'at. And just now, she just went to take a bit of a rest, but she has been working the whole day. Vayomer Boaz el Ruth, halo shamat biti, al telchi lilkod bisde acher. Listen to me, Boaz says. He went over to Ruth and he said to me, listen to me, my daughter. Obviously, she's not his daughter, but Boaz was already 80 years old. Ruth was 40. So she could have really easily be his daughter. So he says, listen to me, my daughter. Al telchi lilkod basade. Do not go to gather wheat from other fields. בשדה אחר. וגם לא תעבורי מזה. Do not go away from here. וכה תדבקין עם נערותיי. Stay here. Stay with my women workers. עינייך בשדה. Keep your eyes on the field. אשר יקרצון. The field where the workers are going to be harvested. והלכת אחריהן. And go follow them. Go behind them. Don't go next to them. Don't go ahead of them. Go behind them. This was the צניעות. הלא ציוויתי את הנערים לבלתי נוגעך. And I already commanded my workers not to harm you, not to bother you, not to touch you. וצמת, and if you're thirsty, והלכת אל הכלים. If you're thirsty, there's water here. There's like barrels of water that the workers filled up. You may help yourself. Okay? So we stop here and let's understand what was going on in these pesukim. Let's go a little deeper than just the plain meaning, the plain peshat of these pesukim. Okay, so as we said, Naomi and Ruth, they went to the house of Naomi. It was her old house, and they needed food. So Ruth tells Naomi she wants to go to get some food, some wheat, and Naomi is taught her the laws of leket. Okay, so Ruth now came to the field of Boaz. She didn't know whose field it was, and it wouldn't have mattered for her to hear about the name Boaz. Didn't mean anything. Could have been Boaz, could be any name, or anyone, right? So in the pasuk it says Vayakea. By coincidence, she ended up in the field of Boaz. Is it really a coincidence? Coincidence? We know there is no such a thing, right? But really, what does this mean? It means that Hashem was actually directing her steps. In a way, I was listening to some of the survivors from October 7, girls or men or women who had been there, and they explained that they say that they really don't understand how they made choices that they weren't really choices, meaning like they decided to run into a certain direction, right, to run away from the terrorist, and at last minute they changed. They went somewhere else. Or the people who were with them decided, no, we're going to go somewhere else, to the left instead of going to the right, or hiding the ditches, or hide whatever it is. And for whatever reason, this woman, for example, she decided she wasn't going to stay there, and she decided just to keep going, right? And because she decided to keep going, she had been saved. She had been able to somehow hide, and she had been saved. So why? And this woman was saying that really, like, she felt like, now she thinks about it and she realizes that really it was a choice, but it wasn't a choice. Like it was just something that she felt like she was being pushed to go to a certain direction. And this is exactly what's happening in this pasuk. That Ruth is sort of like being pushed to go to a certain direction. And what was the direction? That she ended up in the field of Boaz. So Boaz came that day to the field, and he noticed Ruth. Why did he notice her? Because of her tzniut. He realized that on her own, she had not been standing next to the workers or ahead of the workers, but she was behind the workers. She was following the workers. She was not standing next to them. And that really made a big impression on Boaz. And he said, "Who is she?" He started to inquire. That was not really the way. Boaz was a Rosh Sanhedrin. He was a great, great Talmid Chacham. It wasn't his way of doing things, but by observing his workers, and he saw Ruth there, who happened to be the only woman at that moment behind those workers, so he could not but notice her. And so he asked, "Who is she?" And then she was told that she is from Moab. She came back from Moab with Naomi. All right, and she has been there the whole day long working. She didn't stop, and she just now took a break. Okay, since the morning. So then Boaz decided to go over to her. He blesses her, and he gives her permission to follow the workers, to be at ease, not to feel comfortable. And he gave her permission to drink from the water. And the next Pesukim, we see that he even gives her permission to come and eat lunch that was given to the workers. And he said to her, "Enaich basadeh, your eyes are in the field, asher yiktzorun, in the field that where the workers are going to be working, v'halacht acharehen, and you go and follow them, halo tziviti anarim levilti nogech, and I commanded the workers not to harm you, not to touch you, not to do anything to you." So here there are quite a few questions. As the Zer Shimshon is asking a question. Why did Boaz have to command his workers not to bother Ruth? Is there a reason why the workers would bother a widow or a convert? Doesn't seem reasonable, especially that we know that in the Torah it says, "Kol almana v'yatom lo ta'anun." Do not afflict, do not cause pain to a widow or to an orphan. And for sure, Boaz's workers would not have behaved in a way where they would cause pain. And why not? because Boaz made it his business to teach his workers how to treat the poor who came to the harvest. And he also made it his business to make sure that the women and the men who were working for him would behave properly. And even more, what's the connection between halotziviti, I have commanded the workers, right, not to harm you, to enaich basadeh, the your eyes are on the field, asher yikretzun, yiktzorun, sorry, that the field are going, the workers are going to be working in, right, collecting the wheat. Halachta acharehen, go after them. So it seems that Boaz commanded the workers, and he said, first he said, sorry, let me just go back a moment. First he said, your eyes are on the field, and then he said, I commanded my workers, right? So for us to understand what Boaz meant to say that he commanded his workers, we need to know the laws of shechecha. What is shechecha? Shechecha is a bundle of wheat that has been forgotten by the workers or by the farmer in the field. So it says in Sefer Devarim, Veshacharta Omer, and you forgot a bundle of wheat, basadeh, could be wheat or barley, right? In the field, you forgot a bundle in the field. Lo tashuv lekachto, you may not go back to get it. Okay? And in the Mishnah it says that this is a rule, that anything forgotten in the field, a farmer may not go back to it to get it. That's it. Now it belongs to the poor, or to the ger, or to the yatom, to the orphan, to the convert. That's it. It doesn't belong now anymore to the farmer. And also to the almana, also to the widow. So they are the ones now who are entitled to take it. They have the right to take it, right? However, the Mishnah teaches us that in a case when there are two or more workers, you could have, depending on how big a field is, you could have 5 workers or 10 workers, right, working in the field, and to be more efficient in their work, they don't start working from the end of the field. They go in the middle. From the middle, one goes this way and one goes that way. So the Mishnah says one goes north and one goes south, and they start cutting, right? They go through the rows and they start cutting and they make bundles as they cut, right? Now it could be that in the middle of a row, there's a bundle, and the workers did not take away this bundle. So the Mishnah and Rav Ovadia of Batenura explained that actually this is not called shechecha. It's not really forgotten. Why? Because you have a whole bunch of work. You have, let's say, 10 workers, right? They're working on cutting the wheat. And they start from the middle and they're separate, right? One goes to the north, one goes to the south. Well, actually, it's north and south, right? And they start cutting the wheat. Now, it's very likely that they made bundles. They started right from where they were, but they did not pick them up. It's very likely to happen. And only afterwards, they realize, oh, there is one bundle over there in this area, right? Why? Because since each one started from really the same spot, each one relied on the other one to pick up the one closest to them, but they didn't. Each one of them really relied on the other worker to get it. So that is not called shechecha. And because of that, the farmer may go back um, and uh, and take it. So when Boaz was saying to Ruth, go back, I mean, you may go behind the workers and take anything, any licket, any branch of um, wheat, and you may also take from the shechecha, which is not really considered shechecha, because Boaz had many workers, right? Is he told her, don't worry, don't be scared, don't be afraid, no one's going to harm you. So why did he say that? Kitziviti. Because I told them that I gave you permission to go and take even from the shechecha, which is not shechecha, but I gave you permission. I'm giving you permission to take from it. So now her mind was at ease, and she knew that she could go and she could take, and no one was going to come and bother her. But then the Zera Shimshon raises another couple of questions. What was Boaz's intention by giving these instructions to his workers not to bother Ruth? Because if he wanted to give her from the crops, from the wheat, it really, everything belonged to him. He could have just have taken a whole bunch and said, here, take it, right? He could have done it not really in front of everyone, but he could have just really taken and given it to her, right? And this would have been with more kavod, and would have been a gift. It would have saved her from the embarrassment of having to follow the workers in the field, just like a poor person. And number two, the second question, why did not Boaz give Ruth anything as a gift? Not the first time when he saw her this day, when he told her, don't go anywhere else, stay in this field. And not even later on when Ruth was in the granary at night. So when was Ruth in the granary at night? This we learn further on in the Megillah, that when Ruth came back home that night, and she came back with a lot of wheat, and Naomi was so surprised. Wow, where have you been that you got so much? And so Ruth started to tell her, yeah, I got permission from the owner. He told me I could take. And the owner, his name is Boaz. When Naomi heard this, she felt so relieved. Because really, Naomi had been so embarrassed that she had left Eretz Israel, and she came back now poor. She still owned the field of her husband, which we'll talk a little later about it. But she was really poor. She had nothing now. So what was Naomi going... So Naomi was really embarrassed. But now she sees that Hashem really made it that Ruth should go to the field of Boaz. It had to be what Hashgacha Pratit. Hashem actually led Ruth to the field of Boaz. So once Naomi knew that, then Naomi told her, you're going to go and hide in the granary. The granary is a place where they store, where they keep all the grain. Go and hide there, because once they put all the grains in the granary, Boaz is going to sleep there, because that's the way, that's how it was done, just to make sure that thieves don't come and don't steal. So he's going to sleep there. You're going to hide yourself. in the middle of the night when he's already sleeping, you're going to come and you're going to remove the cover of his feet, only of his feet. That's it. And don't do anything else yet. Then, when he's going to wake up, you're going to tell him who you are, and you're going to tell him that he is the Goel, and he has got to marry you. You have got to ask him to marry you. What is this Goel? So the Goel is like this. The Goel is like when Ben Israel came to Eretz Canaan with Yehoshua, they had to fight many wars against all those nations that lived there. There were 7 nations, and they fought the war against all those 7 nations. Once they fought the war against the 7 nations, they had to split the land, all of Eretz Yisrael. They had to split it into the 12 Shevatim, the 12 tribes. So each Shevet got its own territory. Then each Shevet divided the territory into families. So Elimelech and his 2 brothers, so there were 3 of them, they had inherited from their father the field. And so now the field was divided into 3, 1 part for Elimelech and 2 parts for the other 2 brothers, right? Each brother had 1 part. And this field that were given to Ben Israel, they were never allowed to be sold. They could list them, but they could not be sold. They could list them until the Yovel, Jubilee year. Yovel is a 50th year, and then the field had to go back to their owners. The slaves had to be freed, and so now a field had to go back to its owner, right? Its original owner. Now, if a family was poor, like now we have the case of Ruth, Naomi and Ruth, who were now poor, so Naomi would have to sell her field. So the mitzvah is for the closest relative to buy the field from Naomi and to buy it until the Yovel. But Naomi's field now was divided into 2 portions. 1 portion for Naomi, 1 portion for Ruth, because of Ruth's husband, Machlon. So now, the mitzvah of the Goel was to take the field, but in Ruth's case, since her husband died without having any children, Ruth did not have any children, so her husband would have to marry, the Goel would have to marry Ruth. And there was a relative. This relative is called Tov, and he was the uncle of Boaz, the brother of Elimelech. And so Boaz could not really tell Ruth, I'm going to marry you. He said, first there is a closer relative to me, and it's his mitzvah. Actually, he has 2 mitzvot: to get the field, to buy the field from Naomi, and to marry you, Ruth. And I cannot do these mitzvot. They are not mine. They really belong to Tov, my uncle. Now, if he refuses, then I'll take care of it and I will marry you. So that's the mitzvah of the Goel. Then there's another mitzvah, which is the Goel has to marry the Ruth, who has no children, right, from her first husband. And this is called the Yibum. It means marrying the closest relative so that the Ruth can have children, and they will be considered also the children of her first husband, not only of her second husband, but also of her first husband. The and however, as we're going to see later on, that Tov refused to do the mitzvah, right? Boaz called him, and he made a meeting with all the Beit Din to make sure that nobody has a claim on the field, and say, okay, you are Tov. Are you willing to buy the field? Tov, yes, sure, of course, yes, I'll buy the field from Naomi, but at the same time, you also have got to marry Ruth the Moaviah, because half of Naomi's field really belongs to her, and she won't sell unless you marry her to do the Yibum. At that point, already Tov refused. He says no. At that point already, the Megilat calls him Ploni Almoni, Mr. So-and-so, because he refused to do the mitzvah of Yibum. In that case, there is the mitzvah of Chalitza, that Naomi had to spit into his face. She had to take off his shoe, and he had to hold his shoe in his hand, right? Because he refused to make a mitzvah, the mitzvah of Yibum. So Boaz, he knew that if he would get married to Ruth, right? Now we have to go back to where we are now. If he would get married to Ruth, he knew something good was going to come out of it. And what was that good that he was so excited about? That was Mashiach. He knew Mashiach was going to come out from this union. So, and Boaz knew, just as it was a great kavod, a great honor to be the Goel of the field for Naomi, it was also a great kavod to marry Ruth. And Ruth was fit to marry. Because some people were disputing that. They were saying, no, Ruth, she's from Moab, she's not accepted. Yes, she is accepted. It was clarified that the women of Moab were accepted. And so Boaz was very excited about this whole prospect. So then, but the whole prospect did not happen yet, right? So when we come back to the question of the Zera Shimshon, why didn't Boaz give Ruth a gift? Because Boaz didn't want people to talk. We know that people talk about anything and everything, and sometimes a small little deed can become an elephant. And Boaz didn't want people to talk about Ruth. Boaz did not want to see people, Boaz is giving a gift to Ruth. It means that they engaged. There is something going on between them, right? And Boaz didn't want anything like this to go on until first he wanted to give the opportunity to the Goel, his uncle, to actually perform the mitzvah of Yibum or Chalitza, right? Boaz didn't know which way it was going to go. And so Boaz gave to Ruth, again, as he's giving to a poor, not as a gift to a man to his kala, his bride, but to an honor to a poor. And he gave her 6 measures of barley. So why 6 measures? Because here the Chachamim tell us that 6 measures were actually referring to 6 great tzaddikim who were coming from her. It was David HaMelech. Let me find it here. It was David HaMelech, Daniel HaNavi, Hanania, Mishael and Azariah, and Mashiach. That all these great tzaddikim were going to come from Ruth. Because Ruth, that was as a reward for her for truly wanting to belong to Am Yisrael, for accepting Hashem and all the mitzvot fully, the mitzvot of the Torah. But then Ruth had nothing to say about this matter. Boaz said to Ruth, she obviously did have something to say. How? Because Boaz said to Ruth in Perek Gimel Pasuk Yud, he said, "Hitaft chasder ha'acharon min harishon." Your first, the last deed, your last good deed, your last chesed is better than the first chesed, the first good deed. Levilti lechet acharei bachurim. That you, what's the last one? The last one is that you didn't go get married to one of these young men. You didn't try. And what is the first one that Boaz was referring to? It was the that she had converted. So does Boaz mean that not going after the young man is greater than converting, becoming Jewish, accepting the Torah, believing in Hashem? How does this work? This is what really Boaz meant to say. In the Gemara, he said like this: Gdola haftacha שהבטיחן הקדוש ברוך הוא לנשים יותר מן האנשים. In Yeshaya, there is a pasuk. The pasuk says, Nashim sha'ananot, that women are tzadkaniyot, are at ease in this world, and they're confident to reach Olam Haba. Why? Because Gedola Haftacha, because Hashem has promised to the men and women of Am Yisrael that they're going to have Olam Haba. However, the promise that Hashem made to the women is greater than the promise that He made to the men. How so? How are the women going to get a greater reward than the men? Nashim b'may zachyan. So how and the women going to have that merit? Through what deed are the women going to have that merit of having such a promise? And the Mishnah says, because they send their husbands and their sons to learn, and they give permission to their husband to go and learn, and they wait for them to come back. It means the husband is not coming to a cold house, or nobody is there. Well, it can happen, but usually the wife is going to wait, give him whatever he may need still. Maybe it's at supper or whatever it is, he might need something. So the husband knows he has that peace of mind that my wife is waiting for me at home, and whatever it is that I'm going to need, she's going to provide for me. So for allowing the husband to go and learn, and for waiting for their husbands to come home from their learning, for that Hashem says the women are getting a bigger reward. So when Ruth converted, she also had the same reward coming to her, just like any other Jewish woman. Just like anyone else. Her status had been elevated. But once she married Boaz, she waited for him to come back from his learning, right? So now her reward was greater than all the men. That's why Boaz said, your second deed of not going after the young man is greater than converting, because by your second deed of not marrying the young man, but you went to marry only a Talmid Chacham, now you earned a greater reward, and that is the reward reserved only for tzadkaniyot, and only for Jewish women, and that reward is greater than whatever reward is reserved for the Jewish men. So may Hashem give us the zechut of getting that reward. Now that we know that promise is there, now it's up to us to actually keep it and make sure that we do get that reward by sending our sons and our husbands and encouraging them to learn and waiting for them to come home. Have a good day.